Okay guys, so welcome back again. So in this video, let's see that how do we use the Prisma ORM, and for that we'll be building a RESTful API using Express as our backend. And I think that an API is the best way to describe all the CRUD applications of Prisma. So without wasting any time, let's dive into VS Code and let's see that how it is done. So here inside VS Code, I've created an empty directory called Prisma API CRUD, and if I do ls here, we see that it is an empty directory right now. So what we'll do is that we'll scaffold the Express application inside this folder, and to scaffold an Express API, we'll be using this package called Express Draft because it will provide us with the basic skeleton of our Express API application. So to install it globally, you need to simply do npm i-g and Express Draft to install it globally. So let's do it here. So I've already done this, that is npm i-g Express Draft to install it globally, but you might need to do it. So now let me clear out the console, and now to initialize a new Express application, what I simply need to do, I need to simply do exp and dot to scaffold the Express API application in the current folder, which is in our case is Prisma API CRUD. So let me do exp dot and let me press enter. And now it will create some files here inside this folder. And now we see that we have this package.json file with some scripts here, or with some dependencies here. That is the .env, express and HTTP errors to handle all the HTTP errors. And then we have Morgan as the logger here. And then we have a dev dependency called nodemon, which is used to restart the application whenever it sees changes inside the .js files by default. And if we have a look at the .env file, we simply have one environment variable that is called port, and that is mapped to port 3000. And now if we have a look at the app.js file, we see that it is already scaffolded for our application use case here. That is, we have the default Express application here, and we have one endpoint here that is app.get and then this /. So let me try to start this application. So if we have a look at the package.json file, we have a dev script and we have the other start script. So let me do npm run dev to start the application in development mode. So we see that the application is started, and now if we go to localhost port 3000, we see that we get a response back from our API or from our server. That is awesome, it works. So we know that our Express application is working. So now we have one more route here inside this folder or inside this application, that is API route.js, which is mapped to all the requests coming to /API. So if we go to this API route.js and if we go to the index route of API, we see that we should be getting this message here that is okay, API is working. So let's try that out. So if we go to localhost port 3000 /API, not hello, but and we see that this is handled by the Express error handler that we created inside the application, which is done by default by the Express Draft package. So this thing is also an additional use case here for using this package here. So if we go to the /API, we see that. So we see that the application is working. And now what we need to do, we need to create a couple of more routes here. So before defining the routes here, the model on which we are working upon is the products model. That is, we would be making an API for the products thing here. That is, we should be having a route to get all the products. We should be having a route to get an individual product, a route to delete a product, a route to update a product. So that's what we are going to build in this video. And our product model would be linked to a category model, which in itself is an API. That is, if you want, you can create an API for the category also. And in our case, the model would be related like this. That is, a product would belong to a single category, but one category can contain many products. So this would be a one-to-many relationship. Though I could have chosen to make this API not to have any relations, but like it would be more intuitive to work with Prisma using relations. So that's why I have chosen this thing here. That is, we should have two models. That is the product model and the category model. So without wasting any time, let's see that how do we install Prisma. So for that, what we need to do, we need to stop the API first, and let me clear out the console first. And now what I need to do, I need to install a dev dependency called Prisma, which would give us the Prisma CLI. So I'll do npm i-d to install it as a dev dependency, and it would be called Prisma. And it would take a moment or so. And then we are going to install something else, and that is called the Prisma client, which would allow us the access to the Prisma database. So let me install the Prisma client. So for that, I need to do npm i at Prisma /client. So this is the client which we are going to use in our application to make all the queries to the database. And like it would make more sense once I'll do all of the stuff here. So just wait for a second or so to install this Prisma client. And now let me clear out the console. And now we see that we have these two dependencies installed. That is the Prisma client and the Prisma as the dev dependency. And now to initialize a Prisma project here inside the current project, what we can do, we can use this Prisma CLI, which we get from this dev dependency called Prisma. What we can do, or we can simply do npx prisma init, or simply like this. Though I could have manually created all the files here inside some folders here, which are like by default, but like it is more intuitive and it is more easy to create your schema using this npx prisma init thing. So it would initialize a new Prisma project here inside the current project. So now let me simply press enter, and now it would do a couple of things here. So we see that we got a folder here that is called Prisma, and we get something here inside the .env file also. So let me minimize the terminal once here. So we see that we have these comments here, that is this was inserted by Prisma init, and that is what we already did. And rather because of that, this thing is here, and we have these things here which you can simply ignore. Or the one thing to notice here is this database URL, and we see that this points to the Postgres SQL here. And the beauty of Prisma is this, that you can use this Prisma ORM with any database you like. If you like the SQL database, you can use it with SQL databases like Postgres, like mysql database, or like the sqlite database, or like MS SQL. So whatever database you want to have as your backend or as the database, you can use any database which you want. Or what you can also have, you can also have the NoSQL database like MongoDB to act as your database. So this is the database URL which we get here, that is Postgres SQL and then / something here. But since we do not have Postgres installed locally on our system, the database on which we are going to work is a relational database, and that is a SQLite database which we are going to use. So for that, what I need to do, I need to make a couple of changes here inside this database URL, which I'm going to do in a moment. So before changing this database URL, let's see that what's inside this Prisma thing here. So let me open this Prisma folder here, and we see that we have only one file here that is called schema.prisma. So if you open this file, we have two things here. That is the database source, which is currently set to Postgres SQL, and we would be changing it to SQLite in a moment. And then we have this generator client. And since we installed the Prisma client, that is this package here, that is this package Prisma client to query our database. So this generator simply means that is to generate all the types for the model which we are going to make in a moment to be used with this Prisma client. So this is what is meant by this thing here, but you can simply ignore this if you do not know. You can simply keep it as it is, and you should be only interested in this database source here, or which is currently set to Postgres SQL. And for this video, I would be changing it to SQLite. That is, we want to use SQLite as our database here. And now to use environment variables inside the schema.prisma file, we can simply pass the environment variables like this. We do not have to do process.env and then dot something like this, or we can simply put an env here, and then we can say that in the parentheses we put in the key of our environment variable, and that is the database URL. And since we are using SQLite, we need to change the database URL. So let's go to the .env file, and instead of this thing here, let me remove this thing out from here. And so here, let me simply provide here file / and here what we can do, we can simply call it any database, and let me call it let's say dev.db. That is the name of our database or the database file which would be creating for SQLite, and that would be all what we need to do inside this env file. So let's save the env file, and let's go to the schema.prisma thing here. And now what I need to do, I need to define a model for a product. So let's define a model like this. So we can say model, and then we need to give a name to our model, and that would be called product in our case. And now our product should have an ID. So let's pass in an ID, and then we need to provide in the type of this field here. And in our case, it would be an integer here. And now what we need to do, we need to make this field as the primary key. So what we can say, we can annotate it with @id. That is, this field should be our primary key. And then to provide in the default value for this field, what we can do, we can use one more this annotation here, that is @default. And then we can provide in the default value. And for this thing, I can simply provide an auto increment. So it would be like auto increment like this. And then the ID would be automatically generated whenever we create a new model or whenever we create a new product. And now our product should have a name. So let me say name, and this would be of type of a string. And now only to show you the different aspects of Prisma or the different annotations which you can use inside a product model or inside any model, I want to provide this field as unique. It might not make sense, but still I want to keep a product name to be unique. So I can simply pass this annotation here, that is at unique, like this. And then we should have a price for this product. So let's call this field price, and this should be an integer. And then I would like to keep a default value for this price. So we can pass in a default value like this, that is $9.99. That would be the default price of this product, whatever the product may be. And then we need to create one more field here, that is called created at. And before we work ahead, let me show you one thing here. That is, inside my VS Code, I've installed these two extensions, that is Prisma. So if we go to this extensions things here, and if you type in Prisma, you can install this extension on VS Code, that is this Prisma by the Prisma team. So it gives you this beautiful UI, or the text is colored, and then it would provide you with auto completion and the indentations of this model and this file. So I would highly recommend that before working upon Prisma, you should definitely install this extension called Prisma. And one more extension which I am going to use later on, and that is called REST client, to simply make a API request to our server, that is this current server. So this is the client which I am going to use to make API requests from inside VS Code, and that is called REST client. So this is also highly recommended you to install it. So now let me close this thing here, and let's go back to our thing here, that is the model product. And now we want to create one more field here, that is called created at, that is when this product is created. So for that, let me call this field called created at, and then this should be a date time field. And then the default value should be also provided to this field, and it should be now. That is, whenever this product would be created, the current time would be saved whenever the product is created. And now, before defining the relation between this product and category, let me save this thing here, and let me define the model for category. So let's define the model, another model here called category. So category. And now this should have three fields, that is the ID of the category, the name of the category, and which products it has. So let me define the ID here like the same as the product thing here. So let me simply copy this thing from here and let me paste it here, because the category should also have an ID. So it is like this. And then it also has a name field, and this should be a string. And now this category name should be unique. So let me annotate it with @unique. And then a category can contain many products. So let me simply define this products here. And this would be of type of product. That is this product which we just created. So now what I can do, I can simply pass an array here. That is a product should contain many products. And now we see that we get this red squiggly line here. And now to fix this, we have two things here. We can simply save this file, and this product model would be auto-populated with the things which it would need to connect this category to this product and product to this category. So let me simply save this thing here. And now as soon as I saved this thing here, we see that we got two more fields inside this product model. And that is the category and the category ID. So basically the relation is this, that this field category ID, that is this product belongs to a category which can be nullable because there is a question mark here. So it means that even if you want to create a product without a category, this product can be created. But if you do not want a product to be created without a category, then you can simply remove the question mark here. Then we need to provide in the category whenever you want to create a product. So this is this works like this. So now we see that we have two things here, that is the category also, and we also have the category ID. Now to make a relation between this product and this category, we have defined this category here, and this relates to this thing here, that is the fields and the reference ID. That is this field category ID is referenced to this ID here inside the category model. And now whenever we are going to create a new product, we simply need to provide in the category ID, and we do not need to provide in the category here. So this should be in a small here, not in caps. So it would be linked to this category. So like it will make more sense when I'll do this inside the API, but till now we have simply defined the product schema here. And now before we can start working upon Prisma, let's go to this API route.js. And now here, let me create a couple of more routes. That is, we should be having a route to get all the products. So it would be like this. So let's make a RESTful API first. So this route would handle all the products. So this route would be handling the individual product with an ID. And let me define one more route. And this route should be a post route to make us create a new product. So it would be a post route to this products route to create a new product. And now we should have one more route, and that would be to delete a product by an ID. So it would be called delete here. And then we simply need to provide an ID here, that is the product we need to delete. And then we need to have one more route, and that would be a patch route here, that is to update the products. And then we also need to provide in the ID here to update, that is the product ID to update. So we see that we have all the 5 endpoints to our API, that is getting all the products, get a product by ID, to create a product, that is a post request, to delete a product, that is a delete request, and then a patch request to update the product. So firstly, let me save this thing here, and before working upon the API, let me show you something here. So let me clear out the console first. So since we have installed Prisma as a dev dependency, so what we can do, we can start the Prisma Studio to see that what all things are present inside our database using a GUI interface. So for that, to start the Prisma Studio, what I can do, I can simply do npx Prisma Studio. It would open the Prisma Studio on port, I think 5555. So we see that we are getting these things here. That is all the models here. We have the category model also, we have the product model also. But if we try to go inside any of the model here, we see that we won't be able to do this because we need to do a couple of more steps before we can do this stuff. And even if we go to category, we would be getting an error here because we have not created any tables inside our database. We have just defined the tables. Now to create a table inside any SQL database, you need to do migrations. So let's go here and let me open another terminal here. Now to do all the migrations here inside a SQL database using Prisma, what you can do, you can simply do npx Prisma migrate dev. That is, since we are working in the development environment, so I'm passing in dev here. And now if I do this thing here, we see a couple of folders would be created inside this Prisma folder. So we see that we need to provide in the name for this new migration. So let's simply say that first, whatever you want to provide, it doesn't matter. And now we see that our database is in sync with our schema, which means that the necessary tables are generated. And now if we go to our application here, or this is not the application, this is simply a GUI interface to view the data, what's inside the database. So let me reload this thing here. And now if I go to this category here, we see that we are getting these fields here, or these columns here, that is for the ID, the name, and the products, which is currently empty. And if we open another tab here, and if we have a look at the products here, we see that we have all the 5 columns here. That is the ID, the name, the price, created at, category, and category ID. So this is a kind of a beautiful interface provided by Prisma so that we can easily view our data. But this is not the thing which we want to do. We want to interact with Prisma data. We want to interact with the database using the Prisma client. So now, since we did this, that is, we generated the migrations here. So behind the scenes, Prisma also created one thing more. So behind the scenes, Prisma did one thing more. So what it did, let me show it to you. So if we have a look at the node modules folder, and if we go to this .prisma thing here, that is this Prisma, we see that the client has been generated. And what is meant by the client, I would explain it to you in a moment. So if we open this file here, we see that all the type definitions for this for these models have been generated here. That is, we provide in this ID, the name, price, and category ID. So what it would do, it would provide us auto completion inside VS Code or any other text editor, and it would be super handy. So I just wanted to show it to you. So therefore I just opened this node modules folder. And now if we have a look at the migrations folder, we see we have one more folder here inside the migration. And if you open this migration.sql, we see that Prisma created also these things here. That is, to create a table inside a SQL database, it created this thing here. So this is the beauty of Prisma, that you do not need to create your tables by your own. You do not need to provide in this like ugly looking thing, which is like writing SQL statements is a nightmare in my case, but maybe not in your case. But like, I simply avoid writing SQL statements by myself because you can have a lot of errors if you are doing it by yourself. So therefore it is very easy if you use Prisma. So if we go to this API route.js, and now instead of sending this response, what we can do, we can use the Prisma client that we installed initially, that is this Prisma client, and we can initialize a new Prisma client inside our API route.js, and then we can fetch all the products from our database. So for that, what we need to do, we need to firstly require the Prisma client. So we can say const something equal to require. So let it be like this. So let me make it larger here. So at require at Prisma client like this. And then what we need to destructure, we simply need to destructure the Prisma client here. Simply like this. And now what I like to do, I would like to initialize it. That is the Prisma client. So what I can say, I can simply say const Prisma. So since I'm in dev mode, so I can initialize the Prisma client here directly. But in production, you should only create a single instance of this Prisma client so that it should not put overhead on your server. So here I'm simply going to do Prisma equal to new Prisma client, simply like this. And now to get all the products, I can simply say try catch, because we are going to use await here. And if there is an error, I would simply call it next with the error as the only parameter. And here what I'll say const products equal to await Prisma dot products dot find many, and then I can provide an empty object here, simply like this, and it would fetch us all the products. So, and finally what we need to do, we want to send back a JSON object containing all the products. So we can simply say rest.json, and here we can simply pass in products, simply like this. So let me save this thing here. And now what I'll do, I'll simply create one more file here that is called rest client. So let me simply create this file that is touch rest.http. And now let me start the server here once again. That is, let me do npm run dev. And now let's go to this rest.http, and let me define in the first route to get all the products. So it is running on localhost port 3000, and we need to go to this API route. We need to get all the products, simply like this. And if we do make a request, you should be getting an empty object back. So we see that we are getting an empty response back, and that is because we currently do not have any products inside our collection or inside our database. Not collections, because collections are a part of MongoDB. So now why not, let's create a product and a category here inside this GUI interface. So let's go to the category first, and now let me create a record here. So firstly, the ID is auto incremented. The name of the product would be, or the category would be mobiles. And then currently it has 0 products. So let it be. So now let me simply save one change here. And we see that we have mobiles here as a category. And now let me create one product by hand here. So let me add a record here. So the ID would be auto incremented. The name of the product would be iPhone 12 Pro Max, or let it be like this. The price, I suppose, maybe $11.99, not this much, otherwise no one is going to buy it. And now the created time is like now, and the category we can select it here. So since we created the mobiles category, I can simply select it here. And now let me simply save one change here. And we see that this product is created. And if we go back to our application, and now if we try to make a request here, we see that we should be getting one product here. And that is because we have manually created this product inside the Prisma GUI interface, or the Prisma Studio thing. And we see here that in the response, we are getting this response here. That is the ID of the product, the name of the product, the price, the created at time, and the category ID. But what we want is not the category ID. We want to have the category name with the ID included in that, so that we can have the category object if we want to access it. So what we can do, we can go back to our API route.js file, and not in this thing here. So let me open it here. So we need to go to this API route.js. And here, what we can do, we can pass in one more key here, and that is include. That is to include the category also. So we can simply pass in category here. And we see that we get this auto completions inside VS Code. And that is because of the Prisma client that was generated when we did npx npx Prisma migrate. The client is automatically generated. So we have these auto completions here, and we can see that we can only pass in category here. So here we can simply say in true here, that is to include the category also whenever we make a request. And now if I go to this rest.http, And if I make a request here, we see that this time we have the category ID, but we also have the category also embedded inside here. That is the name of the category or which this product is related to. Now, if you are wondering that how to get a list of all the categories, it is very simple. Let me show it to you, though it is not a part of this API, but let me show it to you. That is const categories equal to await prisma dot category dot find many, like this, and I can do it like this. And then with the products, I can also respond with categories here, and this should be an object here, like this. And if I save this and if I go to make another request here, that is to this URL, we see that we have the products here and we have the categories also. But if we also wanted to include all the products inside this particular category, we can also modify our code here inside API route.js. So let me close this thing here. So let me save it and let me close it. Let me close it. And here I can also do this thing here, that is include. And here I can simply say products to be true, so that I can also get all the products inside a particular category. So let me save this. And if we go to this rest.http, and we should be getting a large object here right now. So this is only for demonstration here. So we see that we have the products here, which we already saw what's inside it. But now we see that we have this categories here, and we have this first category name mobiles, and then we have the products inside this category. And since this category only has one product, so it is getting us a list of all the products that is inside this category. So like you see that it is so easy to work with this Prisma, that making simple changes inside our query to the Prisma database or the backend database using the Prisma client, we can fetch all the categories with different products inside that category. So this is like something easier for me to work with, that is the Prisma client. And now let's see that how to get a product by ID. Or firstly, let's see that how to create a product, and that would be a post request. So let's go here and let me remove this line from here. And now let me do everything inside try and catch, because like I do it always this way, that is so that I do not get any errors on the API. So to create a product, we need to pass in some request body. And if we have a look at the schema.prisma file here, to create a product, we need a name for the product, we need a price for the product. Otherwise, the default price would be $9.99. And the created at time we do not need to pass. And then we also need to provide in the category ID, so that the product can be linked to a particular category ID. So let's go to our thing here, this thing here, that is API route.js thing. And we need to pass in the name, the price, and the category ID. So let's go to our API route. And before working upon this API route, let's create our request here. So let me simply copy this path from here and let me paste it here. And to separate these requests, we need to provide in 3 hashes here. And this was a get request by default. Let me explicitly specify get here. And this would be a post request. And then we need to provide in a JSON kind of body here. So let me provide in some headers here, and that would be content type would be application JSON. So application JSON would be the request body. And then in the request body, we need to provide in the name. And let me provide in the name that is called iPhone, let's say 12 Pro, simply like this. And then we also need to provide in the price of the product, and this would be like $9.99. And then we need to provide in the category ID. So category ID would be like, say, let's say 1, because we currently have only one category. Though in a moment, I'm going to create a couple of more categories here. So let's save this, and now we can access this JSON object or this request body inside our API route.js using request.body. So let's go here. So firstly, what we can say const data equal to rec.body to access what's inside the body here inside this request. And let me scroll up here. And now to create a product, we can simply say const product equal to await prisma.product .create, and then we need to provide in an object here containing a key called data, and here we can simply pass in request.body, or we can simply pass in this data here because that is also containing the request.body. So let me remove this data thing from here. So the data contains the request.body thing here. And we do not need to manually specify all the fields, but if you wanted to do so, you can do it like this. That is like this. That is name would be rect.body dot name like this, and then you can specify all the different fields. For the price, you can simply do it like this. That is rec.body dot price like this, and then we then so on and so forth. But since we can simply use this body here, request body, so I can simply say rec.body like this. And now that is the only thing which you need to do. And finally, you can simply rest.json. And here you can simply pass in this product back to the client. So product like this. So let's save this and let's go to this rest.http. And now let me make a request. We are going to make a post request with this body here. And let's make a request, and if everything goes well, we see that we are getting an error here. And that is because we need to provide this content type as application JSON and not in quotes here. And this time I suppose that the product would be created because providing this application JSON in quotes was not being able to pass this request body. So it should be like this, that is application JSON without the quotes. And if we make a request here we see that the product is created here with an ID of 2, and we have the category ID also. If we go back to our Prisma Studio and if we try to refresh this products page here, we see that now we have 2 products here, and we only have a single category. So before creating more products, let me add manual categories here. So let me create tablets here like this, and let me save this change, and let me create one more category like maybe PCs. Let me save this, and this should be like PC and not like this. And now let me save this, and now we have these 3 categories. So let's go back and let's try to add some more products here. So we see that in our product schema, that is this product schema, this should be open inside this thing here. So let me close this rest.http. So let's save it, and we see that 2 products cannot be created by the same name here because the name of the product should be unique. So if we try to make the same request again, we shouldn't be able to do so. So let's go to this client here and let's try to make a request with this iPhone 12 Pro here. And if we make a request here, we see that we get this message here, that is invalid product dot create, because unique constraint is specified. And that was very true because the name needs to be unique inside the table. And this is how it works. That is a unique field. So let's go to the API route.js file. And this is the way we create products here inside this router.post thing here. And now what we need to look out is this, that how do we get a product by ID? So let's handle this route here. That is get product by ID. So let's remove this thing here and let's use try and catch and next error to handle the error like this. And now to get a product by ID, what I can do, I can simply say const ID. I need to destructure this ID from the parems. It's equal to request.parems like this. And now I can say const product equal to await prisma.product.find unique. And here we need to provide in the query, that is where ID, that is the ID of the product, would be equal to something. And here let me simply provide in this ID. And this would give us an error because we see that we get a red squiggly line here. And that is, it says that a string is not assignable to type of number, because whatever you send here as a request parameters, they are all strings. So what we need to do, we need to downcast this string as a number here. And that can be easily done in JavaScript using this number thing here. And here we need to provide in this ID. And now this is valid. That is, whatever product ID is coming here, we can downcasted that as an ID here, and then we can simply fetch the product. Though for a typical production API, you should be also validating this ID here, that whether this is a number or not, that is whether this is not a number, that is a nan here. But this is the way we do it, that is number and then ID. If this ID string is a valid number, and then finally we can simply say res.json, and here we can simply pass in product here, not product but product. So let's save this and let's open this thing here, and let me simply copy this query here or this request here, and let me separate it by the triple hashes. And then we need to provide in the ID of the product. So let's simply pass in 1 because we know that we have a product with an ID of 1. So let's go here and let's try to make a request here, and we see that we are getting back this product here with an ID of 1. So let's try to pass in an ID which does not exist. So let's pass in 23 and let's see that what happens. So we see that we are getting back null because no product exists here. And if we pass in 2, so we should be getting the product with that ID. So we get iPhone 12 Pro Max, or only the iPhone 12. And now if you also wanted to populate the category here, what we can do, we can simply go back to our API route.js and let's close this REST client. And here, what we can do, we can pass in one more key here, and that is include, like in the products route to get all the product. And here we can simply pass in category to be true, to be populated here. So let's save it and let's open the REST client here. And now if you make a request to this route again, that is to get the product with ID 2, we see that we also have the category included in this response here. So this is how we get a product by ID. So now let's see that how do we delete a product, because that is almost similar as this getting a product by ID. So let's simply copy this thing from here, that is this try and catch block. And let's simply go to this product delete route here, and let's remove this and let's paste in that try block here. So we need to change this thing from here in a moment. I'm going to do that. But we do need to destructure this ID using the request params here. And then instead of using this thing here, let me remove this thing from here. So we'll say const deleted product equal to await prisma.product.delete. And we see that we have many options here, that is to delete an individual product or delete many products. So we are simply interested in deleting one product as of now. And here we need to pass in the object containing the where clause, that is where ID would be this number ID. And the reason is again the same as it was before, that is we need to downcast this string as a number here because this ID inside the product is an integer inside our model. And then we simply respond back as the deleted product here. So let's save this route or this file and let's go to the rest.html file, and let me simply copy this route from here and let me paste it here at the bottom. And this would be a delete request, not the get request. And then we need to pass in the number of the product or the ID of the product which we want to delete. So if we simply query this product, that is product number 2, we get back this product, that is iPhone 12 Pro. And if we make a request here, that is the delete request, we should be getting back this product with this ID that was deleted. And if we go back to Prisma Studio or we reload, we see that we only have one product remaining here. And we can also verify it with our API to get all the products. And we see that we are getting only a single product here, that is with an ID of 1 because product number 2 is deleted. So let's quickly create the second product once again. So let's create this product, and this time the automate increment ID is 3 and we have created iPhone 12 Pro. And now let's see that how do we update the product. So let's say that if we want to update the product with this ID, that is ID number 3 with the price of $12.99. So let's say if we want to do that. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one more route here, and that would be a patch route. And the URL would be the same thing as this thing here, but the ID would be 3. So let's put in 3 here, and then we need to provide in the content type for this request. So let me close the sidebar here. So the content type would be application JSON and not in quotes like the previous time. And then we can provide in the body here, and here we can simply say we want to change the price of this product number 3 with an ID of 3. The price should be like $12.99 like this. And let's also say that we want to change the category here for this product just for demonstration purposes. So let's say that we want to change the product category here. So the category would be let's say category ID would be, let's say 2. So if we go here and if we go to the categories here inside Prisma Studio, we see that we have the ID number 2 associated with tablets here, and currently it has 0 products. And if we have a look here, we see that we have 2 products here, the iPhone 12 Pro, which with an ID of 3 and the price of $9.99. So we are going to change the price of $9.99 to $12.99, and we are going to change the category from this mobiles to tablets. So that's what we are going to do. So we need to pass in the category ID as 2 here for the patch request. So that's what we are doing here. We are changing the price to be $12.99. We are changing the category ID to be 2. And why not, let's also change the name here, because an iPhone doesn't belong to a tablet. So let's also change the name here, and let's put the name here, that is iPhone, not iPhone, but iPad Pro Max, like this. So now we are completely changing this product to have the name of iPad Pro Max, the price $12.99, and the category ID 2. And we are making a request to this route here. So let's handle this request first inside our API route.js. So for that, we are going to use this route here, that is the patch route. So we again do try catch, and next error, like this. Here, firstly, we are going to get the ID from the request.params, because that is the first thing which we need to do to simply find the product on which we are going to work upon. And then we can simply say const product equal to await prisma dot product dot update. And here we need to pass in an object. So firstly, we need to pass in the where clause. So where the ID would be this ID, and here for the same reasons we are going to pass in the number. And then we need to pass in the data, that is the new data, and we can get that data from request.body thing here. And then for obvious reasons, we also want to include the category in the response. So we can say include category to be true, or like this. And now what we can do, we can simply rest.json, that is product. So let's save this. And if everything goes well, we should be updating this product here. So let's go back here. And if we firstly get the product with this ID number 3, so let's get this product with this ID number 3. So we see that we have this product here, that is iPhone 12 Pro. And now we are going to update this product with this request here, that is this patch request. So if we make a request here, we see that we get back a product with an ID 3. The name has been updated, the price has been updated, and the category has also been updated, as we can see here. And if we try to get this product with an ID of 3 again, we see that we get back the same response. And if we go back to our Prisma Studio and if we refresh this page, we see that now inside the products collection, we have iPad Pro Max, price of $12.99. And the category is this category, that is tablets here. That is this product belongs to this category, that is called tablets here. And if we go to the categories here and if we reload, we see that mobile contains one product, tablets contain one product. So this is all is working here. And let's try to make a request to all the products again. And this time we see that we get back an array of 2 products here with an ID of 1 and ID of 3. And as well as we are getting back a list of all the categories here. That is, firstly, we get back an array of categories with an ID of 1, which contains mobiles and it has only these products. And then with the category ID of 2, we have this tablets here, and the products contained in this category is this. And with an ID of 3, that is the PCs, we have no products here. So this was about this thing here. And now let me show you one more thing, or the one more last thing here. So let's say if you want to add one more field to this product here. So let's say we want to create a field here, that is whether it is the quantity of the product. So let's say we wanted to add a quantity for this product, and this should be an integer. So let's save this. So now if I go to API route.js and if I want to access this quantity from this product model, so this won't work, and I will tell you why. So let's go to this route here, that is getting a product by ID. So we see that if we want to access the name, we can simply say console.log. So console.log product. So it should automate product dot. We see that we have these fields only that are populated by Prisma generated client, but we do not see quantity here. It only has the ID, the name, the price, the created ad, the category ID, and the category, but not the quantity. And that is because the Prisma client that was generated when we did migrations only generated these definitions for this model. And now to again generate the definitions for the updated model, what we need to do, or let me comment out this line. What we need to do, we need to stop the application once again. And we simply need to issue one command, and that is called npx prisma generate, like this. And it would generate the definitions for this product again. So let's press enter. And this time we see that the client has been generated again. And if we do npm run dev again, And if I do use this thing again here, that is console.log product dot, and this time we see that we get back the quantity as well here. But now let me show you one more thing, that is if I try to make a request here, that is to get a product by ID, we see that we have this problem here. And the reason is this: the model has been changed and we have done generation, that is the generation of the Prisma client, but that model has not migrated to our database. The database only contains these fields here. So if we refresh it, we see that the database contains only these fields here, not the quantity field. And now to again validate our database with the new field, what we need to do, we need to stop the application once again and we need to do npx prisma migrate dev again. And now we need to wait for a couple of seconds, and now we see that we cannot execute this thing here, and that is because the quantity needs to have a default value, because otherwise there are two rows in the table and it is not possible to execute this step. Or we can do so and so, but the easiest thing to do here is this, that you just go to your schema.prisma thing here, and let's close this thing here and let's open it here. So let's save it, let's close it. So what we can do, we can simply provide in a default value here, and the default value should be 1, like the 1 quantity, or let's say 0 quantity, like this, and let's save it. And now if we do npx prisma migrate dev, this should go through, and now we need to enter the new name for the migration, and let's say like second migration. And now the client is automatically generated again, though we have already manually generated this. If I do npm run dev, and now if I go to this URL to get all the products, we see that we get the quantity as well here. That is the quantity of 0. So guys, that was it. So I guess that this is a pretty long video, and I've done almost all the CRUD operations about Prisma here. Though this is only a brief overview about Prisma, and it is like much more than to Prisma than this video. So you can have a look at the docs here, and they have beautiful docs here inside Prisma documentation. And like if you compare it with Mongoose, then like it depends on you, that if you are like fluent in Mongoose, then you can use Mongoose already, because like it's already a mature ORM for MongoDB. But if you like to work with other databases like the SQL databases, then you can definitely check out Prisma, because you can learn Prisma once and then you can apply this on any database which you like to use, either SQL database or NoSQL database like MongoDB. So like it's a pretty good ORM. So that's all about this video. So if you have liked this video, do hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel till now, do subscribe to the channel for much more exciting content. So thank you, bye bye, tata, take care and have a good day and have a great day.